Aaron.
Hi, Mr. McPherrin. This is Aaron Sovereign at Yorkville Christian High School. I've got Lucas Skinner and Christian Sovereign, my two podcasting duo with me, and we appreciate your time today. I'm going to turn it over to them if you don't mind.
Yeah, just before we go, what are we going to get into, and what are we doing, and where is this thing? You do this every week, or give me some background on what we're doing.
Yeah, so this is we're a relatively new Christian high school, and this is a new class this year. And Christian and Lucas do a weekly podcast, and honestly, most of the time they focus on the NBA, and have they've had different guests. We've had Christian Leitner come on. We've had John Hammond. We had Brian James from Northwestern last week. Just some people that we've been able to meet through connections and through our own personal experiences, and just pick their brain about how they got into the sports industry. Just some background. I mean, it gets shared. Quite honestly, there's probably 50 to 100 views or listens on their YouTube channel every week. So it's small, and the questions are going to be very, just in general, getting some background on you and what your career has been like.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
Okay.
I just wondered what the basics were, but yeah, whatever you need, guys, I'm here for you.
We really appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so first off, I'm Christian Sovereign, and my partner Luke and I are doing the interview. The first question we have for you is how you got started in the business of broadcasting and what brought you to do that.
Right, well, I got started, I think I was in high school, freshman year or so, when I said, what am I going to do, with my life? Like, you think about it, it's not like the pressure's on when you're 14, but I loved watching sports. I loved reading about sports. I loved playing sports. And I thought, well, I got the idea by the time I was 14 that my dream of playing Major League Baseball probably wasn't realistic. And so I thought, well, what else can I do that would connect me to sports? And I thought, well, I'd like to be in broadcasting or journalism, something to do with sports. And so I started thinking about that. I wrote for the school newspaper. I got involved wherever I could. There was an Explorer Scout program nearby that I got involved with, where they took us to a local radio station and taught us about the basics. And then when it came time for college, I applied to colleges that had good programs in communication. Radio TV was the big major, it was called back then, and ended up going to Butler University, where I majored in radio, television, minored in journalism, got a lot of experience on the college radio station, wrote for the newspaper, and then had a terrific internship at a local TV station in Indianapolis. And then what happens is when you become a senior and you're ready to go, you put together a demo tape, you just send it out. At least that's what we did all those years ago in the late 70s. And eventually I ended up, my first job was in Davenport, Iowa, at a station there. It was an AM, FM TV station. I did a little bit of everything. I was a photographer, I was a radio newscaster, and I was a TV reporter. And then from there I went on to Quincy, Illinois, where I was more of an on-air TV guy, both in sports and in weather, actually. And then my career progressed from there. But that's how it all started. And, you never really know where it's going or what you can do. Everybody starts out sort of even, and you just see what happens. And I've been very fortunate as time has gone on to have some really good jobs, and I've loved every minute of it.
Definitely sounds like you've had many opportunities to cover many different teams and just many different aspects of news or of the other sort. I was wondering what one of your favorite teams to cover over your time has been.
Right. Well, I mentioned working in Davenport and then Quincy. I also worked in New Orleans, Orleans, I went to Denver. From Denver, I went to Atlanta. From Atlanta, I went to New York City. From New York City, I came to Chicago in 1991. And, I covered a lot of great teams. In New York in particular, the Mets winning the World Series, the Giants with 2 Super Bowl championships, St. John's going to the Final Four. I mean, all kinds of things. But then when I came to Chicago, I would say if you really want the highlights, I mean, it's hard to beat covering and being in the middle of 5 World Championship runs starring Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and company. So that, to look back and think that you were immersed in certainly the glory days of basketball in Chicago is quite an honor and ranks up at the top of the heap. However, the only thing that could eclipse that would be my experience in 2005 with the White Sox, because I'd grown up with them and been my team, and my dad was a big Sox fan, so it was very personal to me when they won the World Series, and that really, when I really think about it, to be able to cover that, be in the middle of that, be on the field as they, won the ALCS and then the World Series, and it's just nothing can really compare to me to that. So that would be the answer. In fact, there's this picture, guys, of me. It was on the back page of the Chicago Sun-Times when the White Sox won it all, and it was a picture of Ozzie Guillen holding up the World Series trophy, and it was a monstrous picture. It covered the whole back page. But the odd thing was, the trophy, the bottom of it could be seen, and it reflected. It was that gold-plated trophy, and the bottom of it reflected me behind Ozzie. I was standing there ready to conduct an interview or something, and so you see me in the picture in the Sun-Times as if it was supposed to be there. It was hilarious. So I've got that thing framed up, and it's pretty cool. So I'm always sort of eternally connected to Ozzie Guillen in that moment they won the title, and that's kind of a neat honor. So anyway, that would be my all-time greatest sports moment, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. So talking about all the teams that you've covered and kind of going off of that, I was wondering if there were any specific players you really enjoyed covering or getting to interview.
Right, wow. Boy, there's so many. Jordan was, you think of him first, and what I would say about Michael was that he was very professional, polite, conducted himself in a very, top drawer sort of way at all times. It didn't matter if you were with the New York Times or the Hammond Times, he would treat you with respect and courtesy. So I always felt that was a great character trait for Michael, and I enjoyed that. But in terms of all-time great interviews, one of the guys that comes to mind is Mike Ditka. And when he was coaching the Bears, you really had to always be, not necessarily me, but someone from the station would always have to be there at practice and after practice, and certainly at the games. That's obvious, but because you never know what he was going to say. He would just come out with crazy stuff all the time. And so it was always like you didn't know if it was going to be a headline coming out of his mouth because he didn't care. He would just say crazy stuff all the time. The other guy in the all-time interview team, I would say, was Charles Barkley. And, I covered the NBA Finals when the Bulls played the Suns, and he was the star for Phoenix at that time, and he was just a blast to be around. And plus other places since then. Of course, he's gone on to become, the premier TV analyst in pro basketball, and that skill, that ability to come up with quick witticisms has served him well. And again, he's one of those guys who's off the wall too. You never know what's coming out of his mouth either. So those are a few of the guys I think about at the top of my head. Another one another guy who always really got a kick out of and felt like he was really a good guy and would like to have gotten to know him better was Paul Konerko of the White Sox. He's a very thoughtful, intelligent, I'm not necessarily intellectual, but he always would give very, highly intricate sort of answers to questions about an at-bat or a moment in the game. He was a deep thinker and a really good guy, and I've always enjoyed interacting with him. So those are a few that come to mind.
For sure, it sounds like you've worked with many different great players and many different great teams. Obviously, starting your career more as a sports broadcaster, I wonder what the transition was like, turning more into more of a news anchor than a sports broadcaster.
Good question. It wasn't really something I was planning on or dreaming about or thinking about or anything like that. They came to me one day, it was about 10 years ago, and said, hey, we want you to do this. We want you to consider going to the morning news and being our main, male anchor on the Good Day Chicago show. And I thought about it for a long time, and they really wanted me to do it. So eventually I said, sure, let's go. And my thought was that, I'd done the sports for, so many years, and it was a new challenge, and I thought maybe it was just sort of meant to be. And I think initially I did maybe miss sort of the adrenaline rush of being in the action around the games, around the players, the big moments, and those kinds of things. At the end of the day, I think I grabbed on the new challenge and enjoyed, especially in the mornings. At that time, there was always a different guest. It sort of stretches you a little bit to sort of take on a new task and figure out how to do it and how to get your arms around a completely new way of doing it, And I enjoyed that a lot. The thought that, hey, here comes an economist coming in, or a political figure, or one day Tom Hanks walks in. You got to be prepared for that. One day, it's somebody talking about, some famous chef comes in. Grant Ramsay, what's his name? Comes in, and you got to figure that out. So, and then just the day-to-day reading the news and being up on the news, understanding what's going on, and making sure you're always abreast of what's coming your way. And I've enjoyed it. And then about 3 years ago, I went to the night side and doing the 5 and 9 p.m. news. Slightly different than the mornings, but also a great opportunity, and I'm privileged to have it, frankly.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like an interesting change in your career. Something I was wondering about is you had won an Emmy in 1984, I believe. So I was wondering about some of the other memorable moments in your career, including that as well.
Sure. Yeah, I think, 84, that was in Georgia, in Atlanta when I was there. I think I've got another 5 or 6 different things. But, one memory that pops out for sure would have been 1989. I was working in New York City at WABC, the ABC-owned station there, covering sports. And they sent me out to San Francisco. It was the year that the Giants and A's were playing in the World Series, the Bay Series. And they sent me out there to cover that series and report for the local news before and after the game. And as you may know, that was the year the earthquake occurred during the course of the World Series. In fact, just maybe 30 minutes or so before the game, I believe it was game 3. And so it was an unbelievable experience, because I was right there as the stadium started shaking, as the light structures. I could look up and I didn't know what was going on. I was in this TV truck, and this truck started moving. I was looking out to the parking lot, and the cars were like moving, although they were parked. I'm thinking, what the heck is going on? It didn't occur to me it was an earthquake. And then people started streaming out, of the stadium, and we went on the air almost. I was like one of the first guys to go on the air. We were on TV all night long doing reports as it became obvious this was a really big deal. People were killed, neighborhoods were on fire. We went into the city of San Francisco later that night and reported on all the terrible damage there. And I recall, too, with the next morning, I'd finishing up some reports, and we didn't sleep all night long. We just kept going and going. And I ran across or ran into or passed by in the parking area where we were located, Peter Jennings, the famous ABC network news anchor. And he walked by me and he said, nice job, young man, or something to that effect. I was a kid at the time, probably 30 years old or something, and I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. And so looking back, I mean, that was wild to be in the middle of that and to report on it. It's hard to fathom anything just sort of that can match that in its intensity and the spectacular nature of the event. So that certainly is one experience that I'll always remember.
For sure. It definitely sounds like you've had a great career with many different great memories as a sports broadcaster and news anchor. I suppose we will wrap things up here. It was a pleasure having you on today, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. I'd like to thank you once again, and I just wish you continued success with your career.
Well, you're very nice. I appreciate it. Good luck with your podcast. It's a pleasure to talk to you guys, and all the best to you, and good luck with your future careers, too.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.